I am incredibly talented, and by that, I mean I've unlocked every talent. That's right, it's tier list part 2. This time we're going to go through all of the talents and see which ones are worth taking and which ones you should avoid. Fire resistance. Okay, so let's start things off nice and easy with speed. Now, speed is a fantastic ability. It makes you go quicker. So here's speed level 1, and here's speed level 5. As you can see, significantly faster. Now, speed is incredible because the faster you can run around, the faster you can loot, and the more loot you're going to get. For that reason, we are sticking speed straight into S tier. It's one of my favourite abilities, and you should basically always have it. Now let's pick something from the opposite end of the spectrum. Stone Skin. Now, Stone Skin is trash. All it does is give you a little bit of knockback resistance. So in general, definitely not worth taking. It's going to cost you a bunch of points, and on top of that, you can get a bunch of knockback resistance just from your armors, and that doesn't cost you anything. It costs a lot, you can get it from other places, and it's very niche. D tier. Alright, time for the controversial ones. Water breathing and fire resistance. Now, it's no secret that I do not like fire resistance. While I understand the appeal of just floating in lava and not taking any damage, you get exactly the same effect with eating a cobalt apple. And, you know, those don't cost 7 skill points. Now, one good thing you can do is, if you'll hold still, set fire to people with fire aspect. But as you can see, this is 1 damage occasionally. So it is going to help a little tiny bit, but is it going to help 7 skill points enough? I'm not convinced. Now, of course, it is all down to personal preference, so you might absolutely love the fact that you don't need to deal with cobalt apples or water buckets. But for me, I would rather just have an apple and save those 7 skill points and put them into Shaman, Dash, one of the other skills. For that reason, fire resistance is going in C tier. It pains me, but I guess it does have a tiny bit of utility, and it is better than Stone Skin. Water breathing, on the other hand, is much more useful. With aquarium rooms being a thing, as well as if you're messing with guardian farms, it can be quite useful both in the vault and outside. It's also only 2 skill points, which makes it a much better option than spending 5 points for fire resistance, so I'm thinking water breathing has to go into B tier. It's a nice staple to have, but it's not going to be completely game-changing for you. How often do you really die of drowning? Not a huge amount, but it's still a good utility to have. Now, since apparently we're doing these in pairs, we'll go for resistance and parry. Now, they work very similarly, and all they do is they increase the cap that is on your resistance and your parry. Now, this isn't really going to affect you at all in the early game. However, late game, you're going to get really good armors, and they're going to be pressing on that cap. So these are more of an investment when you actually have to do it, rather than being proactive and doing it ahead of time. They aren't bad abilities, but I don't think they actually offer that much. There's nothing that you gain from taking them until you absolutely need to, so I think C tier is going to be a good place for them. Now, don't get me wrong, if you do need these because you've got a parry above 40% or a resistance above 30%, you need to take these. It's just, you're not really investing unless you have that very specific setup. So yeah, it's niche, C tier. Enough of the boring statistical abilities, it's Twerker time. Now, most of you are going to have encountered Twerker before. All it does, and I absolutely love this, is normally you have to wait for these carrots to grow. But if you go and grab all of them, you can just crouch down and they will immediately grow. Now, this becomes super powerful when you've got a hoe, because you can just crouch in the middle, hold down right click, and look at all of those carrots. That is a stupid amount of carrots that come in. Now, Twerker 1 only works on crops, so we're talking carrots, potatoes, wheat, and beetroot. However, Twerker level 2 works on pumpkins and melons. This is incredibly good for villager trading halls. Now, Twerker level 3 works on cactuses and sugarcane, and Twerker level 4 works on baby animals. So now we've got a pen of fully grown up cattle. This is incredibly useful for Volta recipes. There's so many times you need plants, animals, all of that sort of thing. Realistically, the only place for it is to stick it straight by speed in S tier. One playthrough, I decided to not spec into it, and waiting for 500 sugarcane to grow was painful. A tier is looking a little bit empty. What have we got that we could put in A tier? Ooh, reach. Reach is a great ability. Basically, it extends your reach. I really didn't need to explain that, did I? Now, the furthest block I can break normally... there. About there. Now, if we stick some levels in reach, we can go even further. Now, this is really good for opening chests in a vault. It can avoid explosion traps, poison traps, all of that sort of good stuff. But a key thing is it won't extend your reach when attacking mobs, so just be aware of that. It's good for building a little bit further away as well, but just be a little bit careful because if you go too high, you can end up breaking a load of blocks that you don't want to break, so just keep an eye on it. It's a good ability, it's very useful in most situations, which puts it very solidly in the A tier category. Now, another ability that I think fits exactly into this category is Well Fit. Now, by default, you have 10 hearts. If we put a load of points into Well Fit, you can see that our maximum hearts has increased. Having additional health is never a bad thing. Personally, I don't tend to use this one because I like living on the edge, but again, a pretty powerful, self-explanatory ability goes into A tier. Now, Barrier is a bit different. By default, you can only have 6 additional hearts, and then any more than that, you'll just be wasting apples. Having 6 additional hearts is great, but sometimes you want a bit more. So if you put points into Barrier, that limit will increase, and the more points you put into it, the more additional hearts you get. So if we unlock a few levels of Barrier, and then eat some additional hearts, you can see we do actually get some additional hearts. 3 additional hearts in this case, which is always useful. And the higher your base health is, the more Barrier will help out. So if you've got 10 hearts from Well Fit, you're going to get even more hearts from Barrier. Overall, it's a really good ability. However, it does cost quite a lot to get into, and you can't unlock it until level 75, and it requires you to have a bunch of normal hearts anyway, which means those additional hearts are not going to make quite as much of a difference as if they were base hearts in early game. Now, because of that, I'm going to stick it in B tier. It's a good ability, it could be better, and Well Fit is just a little bit better because you get those base hearts, and they're a lot cheaper. Now, a little bit ironically, Elvish and Careless actually belong at different ends of the tier list. Now, any fans of my Let's Play series will know I love Elvish because of this. No fall damage. And having no fall damage unlocks so much potential with dash, mega jump, and all of those sorts of abilities, so you can zip around the vault absolutely no problem at all. Now, Careless seems like just a natural step on from Elvish. It makes you completely immune to kinetic energy, so no more slamming into a tree and killing yourself, which seems good until you realise, well, I'm not going to have my Elytra in a vault. The Elytra has such a low defense that not taking a chest plate is just crazy. So unless you really care about not dying in the overworld, when you just get a corpse anyway and you can just reloot all of your things, it's not really that useful. Whereas you are going to take fall damage constantly in a vault. So Elvish, S tier. Careless, D tier. Doesn't seem to make sense, but that's really where they are. There is a third level, which is Angel, which gives you creative flight, and that requires level 300 and costs 200 points. I'm actually not going to put that on the tier list. Realistically, very few people are actually going to get to that point. There's not really much point in me adding it on, because if you're going to spend 200 points, you're going to spend it regardless of where it is on this list. So we are now halfway through the tier list video. If you are enjoying it so far, go down below and click that subscribe button, make sure you like the video, and if you do want to join our Discord community, honestly it's growing so quickly at the minute, there's a link in the description for that as well. So there's a few abilities left that are really self-explanatory, so what we're going to do now is a lightning round. Strength, makes you stronger, 3 additional damage per level, S tier. Experienced gives you more experience. Can scale all the way up to 2000% at level 150. A great ability, not game changing. B tier. Haste. We all know what haste does. Makes your mind faster. A tier. Unbreakable. Gives you additional unbreaking levels on your weapons and armor. These ones are not quite as good as normal unbreaking levels, so it goes into B tier. Alright, so that got through some of those pretty quickly. Hopefully they didn't need any more explanation than that, because basically that's all they do. But what we're going to do now is go into a little bit more complicated ones. Now, 2 talents you absolutely need to know about once you hit level 50 are Treasure Hunter and Artisan. Now, these 2 abilities are mutually exclusive, so you can only take either Treasure Hunter or Artisan. Now, they do 2 very different things. Starting off with Treasure Hunter, this gives you additional luck levels while you're in the vault. So when you hit level 50, you'll only be able to get +1 luck, and then at higher levels, 7500, 150, 250, you can get additional luck levels. Now these do stack with your modifiers from your catalysts and from any vault gear that you've got, so having these is never a bad thing, and you're going to get more loot by having it, and especially since it applies automatically to every vault, over time you'll get an absolute ton of loot. So what are you giving up to get Treasure Hunter? Well, you're giving up Artisan, and Artisan allows you to craft better vault gear. At low levels, you basically can't craft scrappy gear, so everything is common or higher, and at the really high levels, you get huge chances of getting Omega gear and Epic gear, and you can't even make common items. Everything is going to be sort of rare or better. It's the same level thresholds as Treasure Hunter, but you can only take one of them. The general consensus is if you're playing on single player world, Artisan is better. However, for servers, Treasure Hunter is better as long as someone takes Artisan. Honestly, I've tried both. They're both great. There's no real wrong answer. It'll just change how you want to play things. They are powerful abilities, so we're looking towards the top, and I think A tier is going to be great for both of them. They are very good abilities, but because they are mutually exclusive and because they take a lot of points to get into, and they start off a lot weaker than they could be, I think A tier is going to be the way forwards. Step. Step is an amazing talent. Honestly, one of the most underrated talents in the entire of Vault Hunters. So probably the easiest way to show what Step Up does is for me to just try and run up this hill. So if we're going up, we're going to have to jump up these and then continue there. If we now use Step, we can just run straight forwards, straight up there. And look how much quicker that was. That will save you so much time in the vault that honestly, it's probably equivalent to a couple of levels in speed in the amount of time it saves you. It's one of those talents that's very hard to see the value of until you've actually used it, and then once you go back to not having it, it is honestly just a different game. It feels so bad running into walls and not being able to just climb over them straight away, and you'll go so much slower. Given that, you probably know where it's going in S tier. Now this is looking really top heavy, but luckily we've got 3 abilities that are going straight into the D tier. Those are Thorns, Critical Strike, and Breakable. These are all terrible, you shouldn't really take any of them, but for different reasons. Let's start with Thorns. So all this does is basically give you a 5% chance of reflecting some of the damage back at the attacker, which is basically what Thorns does. The benefit to this one is it doesn't decrease the durability of your gear. However, you need 5 points to unlock a 5% chance of getting 50% damage. And then, if you want to increase the chance, all the damage, you can't do both, you then need another 7 points. So that's 12 points to get either, a 15% chance of doing 50% damage or a 5% chance of doing 100% damage. You can get that with 2 skill points in Spike Tank. Granted, this is on a cooldown, but when you're really going to need it, it's there for you. This is just not worth 12 skill points. Not even close. Honestly, this is just not worth it. Maybe if you've got a ton of skill points at the late game and you just want to throw it in, and for it to need level 50 as well, there's nothing good about this ability. Critical Strike. Now my problem with Critical Strike is that it doesn't add anything to the game. First off, you lose any sweeping edge effects. So for us sword users, that's a really big deal breaker. On top of that though, there's a really important message. Just here. A critical strike can be achieved without this talent by jump attacking. All you need to do, jump and attack, and you get the same effect. And instead of waiting to level 100 and spending 8 skill points to get a 100% chance, you can just jump. It's a great ability for chaining, but that's a tier 3 ability, so you're going to be way into the end game by that point. But other than that, it doesn't add anything. Just jump and hit. Like this. Problem solved. Breakable. This is... Don't get me started on Breakable. What Breakable does is it gives you a chance of redirecting your damage that's coming into you into your armor instead of into your health. Which sounds good, except for the fact that health is regenerable and armor isn't. So... yeah. And this gets even worse at higher levels. The more points you put into it, the worse it gets, because it absorbs more health, but it does more durability damage. So your armor is just going to get absolutely shredded, and there's not much you can do about it, other than just not taking the ability. So just don't take it. It's not worth it. So we go 1, 2, 3. All 3 of these can go straight into D tier, and just never take them. They're awful. Just don't. 3 abilities left, which one to choose? Let's do the least exciting one first, Lucky Altar. Lucky Altar does pretty much what you'd expect it to do. When you put a Vault Rock on an altar, there's a 10% chance that you'll roll a lucky roll, and then everything will be a lot cheaper than it normally is. Lucky Altar just increases that chance, all the way up to 40% when you're at really high levels, but that's level 200. But at level 25, increasing that to 20% isn't bad. However, it's 10% by default, so 20% just gives you twice as many of those. It's okay, it's good, there's not really a downside to it. 3 points is kind of expensive, but it's not going to make a huge difference long term, because you're going to be making farms for all of these items anyway. So, C tier. I think C tier. I was tempted to put it a little bit higher in B tier, but because you've got those level restrictions, then I don't think I can put it any higher. Level 200, that's a bit far into the game for it. Okay, penultimate one, Fatal Strike. Now, Fatal Strike is a bit of an interesting one. It runs into exactly the same issues that Thorns do. You need 5 points for the base, and then 7 points to be able to enhance that. So 12 points is a lot of points. However, it is better than Thorns, purely because having that extra 50% damage on hit means that you don't have to take damage for this to work, which also means you don't need to take durability damage. So it is better than Thorns, but only just. So we're putting it straight into C tier. As I say, being able to deal a little bit more damage is never a bad thing, but at the cost of 12 skill points, maybe it is a little bit. Alright, last but not least, and you all know exactly where this is going, Soul Hunter. Soul Hunter is an S tier ability. Anyone that's taken Soul Hunter knows exactly why this is. For those who don't know, first thing you're going to need is one of these shard pouches. They're very, very simple to make. It just uses some purple wool and a couple of other bits. So what Soul Hunter does, when you kill mobs, there is a chance that they will drop these shards. Now when you collect the shards, they go straight into your shard pouch, and you'll just earn these as you're killing mobs throughout the vaults. Now the real magic happens when you're outside the vault and you click F7. This brings up the Soul Shard trading screen. There are tons of really rare items that you can get by trading in Soul Shards. For example, this Echo Pog. 807 shards for an Echo Pog. How long does it take you to get an Echo Pog normally? A really long time. So being able to save up a bunch of shards and get a free Echo Pog, now that is Pog. Now these ones on the right, they refresh every 8 hours. So if someone on your server takes one of these, you're not going to be able to get it as well. These are all shared amongst everyone on your server. However, there's an unlimited amount of these unknown items, and you can just pull them out and you can get some really good stuff. Look at that, a Vault Diamond block just with 350 shards. Sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're great, sometimes they're a little bit rubbish, but that's gambling for you. But remember, you're not doing anything for these soul shards, you're just running vaults and killing stuff as you go. It's basically free loot. Once you hit level 50, you can increase the amount of soul shards you get all the way up to 300%. So that makes those rare items much more accessible than they were before. It's going in S tier, of course it is. If you only take one thing from this video, I want it to be that you need to invest 1 point in Soul Hunter as soon as you hit level 25, and then the rest is up to you. Now that is the talent list all completed. If you have got any thoughts and opinions, stick them in the comments down below. Remember to subscribe and join our Discord if you want to be part of this awesome community. Thanks for watching everyone, I've been Hellfire Mage, and I'll see you next time.